I'm Tokura, the chairman of Keidanren, Japan Business Federation. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to talk at Net Zero Leaders Summit. Historian Yuval Noah Harari said there are challenges that a single country alone cannot address, but demand global solutions. These are nuclear war, ecological collapse, and technological disruption. The theme of this summit, climate change, is one of major contributors to ecological collapse. In that context, it is significant that global leaders join together to discuss our common challenge to achieve carbon neutrality. I'd like to express my gratitude to the organizers of this summit. Recent years, natural disasters and extreme weather such as heat waves, torrential rains, and large typhoons are frequently striking many places in Japan and overseas, bringing about devastating damage both physically and economically. The business community has a strong sense of crisis, as climate change is the largest threat that can overturn the foundation of our business activities. For example, CO2 concentration has already risen to over 400 ppm level from the pre-industrial level of 280 ppm. Climate change is at a critical stage that we must address it right now. Otherwise, the atmospheric CO2 concentration will continue to rise and likely to reach a tipping point where global warming will become totally unstoppable in the near future. We have no luxury of time in order to save our rich global environment for next generations. Under such circumstances, Prime Minister Suga upholds broad targets to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 and cut greenhouse gas emissions by 46% by 2030. Japan is tackling climate change both in the public and private sectors under Prime Minister's strong leadership through initiatives to generate a virtuous cycle of economy and environment. Needless to say, achieving carbon neutrality is a daunting challenge. We need a radical change in use of fossil fuel that dates back to the Industrial Revolution. Renew the industrial production process. Innovative products and services needs to be widely introduced, and our lifestyle needs to be transformed. We must drive green transformation that is a fundamental transformation of our economic society. As an enabler of technological development and implementation, the Japanese business community is spearheading green transformation in close cooperation with the government, academia, and citizens. We are committed to make our utmost efforts to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. As you may already know, Japan's private sector addresses climate change with the main driver of proactive efforts by business community. The NDC Japan submitted to the United Nations includes proactive efforts by businesses. This is because for a quarter century, Keidanren has been promoting countermeasures against climate change and achieving concrete results. Therefore, I'd like to share outcome of the Japanese business community's proactive efforts so far and our challenges towards green transformation. As we all know, the Kyoto Protocol was adopted at the COP3 in December 1997. Prior to that, Keidanren had formulated the Voluntary Action Plan on the Environment. In this action plan, Keidanren member organizations set their own CO2 reduction goals and make voluntary efforts to achieve their target through a PDCA cycle. These efforts brought about a 12.1% emission reductions against 1990 level during the commitment period of the Kyoto Protocol from 2008 to 2012, significantly contributing to Japan's commitment set forth in the Kyoto Protocol. Even after the Kyoto Protocol's commitment period ended in 2012, Keidanren did not stop our voluntary efforts and formulated the commitment to a low-carbon society in 2013. Since then, we have been making steady progress in emissions reductions through a PDCA cycle. The latest achievement in 2019 was a 10.7% reduction against the 2013 level. Of course, the climate change is a global issue that cannot be solved by a single country, nor by corporations only focusing on CO2 reductions in their own business area. To that end, the commitment to a low-carbon society includes following 4 pillars to maximize reduction efforts. 1. Emissions reduction from domestic business operations. 2. Strengthening cooperation with other interested groups in the entire life cycle. 3. Promoting contribution at the international level through knowledge and technology transfer. 4. Development of innovative technologies to enable greater reductions in the future. Japan's aim to become carbon neutral by 2050 is increasingly drawing global attention and expectation. Keidanren places the top priority on achievement of carbon neutrality. Having revised the commitment to a low-carbon society to the Carbon Neutrality Action Plan to accelerate our proactive efforts. More specifically, businesses participating in this action plan illustrate their own vision to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, constantly review their emission reduction target to make a greater contribution to achieve the government's 2030 target. Keidanren will strongly push forward our carbon neutrality action plan through engagement with the government and citizens to maximize our efforts to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. It is clear that carbon neutrality cannot be achieved with extension of conventional measures. Businesses must be aware that climate change is a material management issue and keep driving innovations ever more aggressively. With this in mind, in December 2019, Keidanren announced Challenge Zero project to support businesses to advance their innovations. Businesses and organizations taking part in this project first declare innovation challenges that contribute to achievement of global carbon neutrality, then announce their concrete actions. There are 3 types of concrete actions as follows. 1. Development of innovative technologies. 2. Dissemination and implementation of such innovative technologies. 3. The financing companies that are engaged in the above challenges. We widely solicit Keidanren member companies and organizations to take part in Challenge Zero. Currently, over 180 members have announced more than 390 ambitious challenges, and the number is continuously on the rise. Special website for Challenge Zero carries innovation challenges of Japanese businesses. So please refer to details of their challenges in the website. I'm sure it will be a useful reference for those who are interested in innovations in the field of energy and climate change. Keidanren strongly promotes Challenge Zero, as we believe this initiative will change the game and create friendly competition of innovations. We are closely aligned with the Japanese government to carry forward Challenge Zero. For example, in October 2019, we started Zero Emissions Challenge in cooperation with the METI. This project lists up companies taking innovative challenges to realize the carbon neutrality in order to provide their information to investors. This is a government industry initiative to encourage financial institutions and ESG investors in Japan and overseas to invest in businesses pursuing innovation through Challenge Zero. The Japanese government also established 2 trillion yen Green Innovation Fund to financially support companies' innovation challenges. This program provides long-term, 10-year support for research and development of key technologies essential to realize carbon neutrality, such as hydrogen, renewable, and nuclear energies, EVs, and CCUS. The business community is determined to take innovation challenges by taking full advantage of support framework like this. Companies making efforts to realize carbon neutrality should be properly evaluated by financial institutions and ESG investors at home and overseas, and receive investments to accelerate their innovations. In order to create this virtuous cycle, not only support programs like Zero Emissions Challenge, but also proactive and effective disclosures by companies are indispensable. The most well-known framework for climate-related disclosures is TCFD recommendations made by TCFD or Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures established by request from G20. Japan has the largest number of TCFD supporters in the world, with 428 institutions as of today. TCFD Consortium, sponsored by Keidanren, is a center place for pioneering activities, such as establishing guidelines to facilitate investment decisions by financial institutions and effective disclosures. The Japanese business community is building up best practices for disclosures based on TCFD recommendations and enhancing dialogues and engagement with financial institutions and investors in order to develop an environment to financially support challenges toward carbon neutrality. Last but not least, efforts to achieve carbon neutrality is absolutely challenging, but this is an inevitable issue for mankind. As I said at the beginning, climate change cannot be addressed by a single country, but requires concerted efforts among all nations in the world to protect the global environment, our social common capital, or global commons. The Japanese business community will continue our contribution in close cooperation with the government to achieve carbon neutrality through the initiatives introduced earlier, such as the Carbon Neutrality Action Plan, the Challenge Zero, and climate-related disclosures. I would appreciate your kind understanding and support for the Japanese business community's initiatives. Thank you very much for your attention.